Right, US President Trump is escalating his push to acquire Greenland, with the White House confirming discussions of options including military action. Despite a warning from Denmark that an attack would spell the end of NATO, President Trump is repeating his insistence to take control of Greenland. And this has sparked outrage across Europe, with leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland and Spain rallying behind the Arctic territory. Switzerland has said that any change to Greenland's status requires the consent of both Denmark and Greenland. Here are more details.
The White House has announced that President Donald Trump is actively considering a range of options to acquire Greenland, explicitly stating that military action remains always an option. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emphasized that securing Greenland represents a critical national security imperative for the United States, which is essential for countering the growing influence of Russia and China in the Arctic region. After the US military captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro last weekend, President Trump has renewed his long-standing interest in Greenland, and he wants to expand US access and insists on full control. The announcement has provoked swift and unified condemnation from European allies, straining relations within NATO. Allies including France and Germany are working closely on a plan on how to respond should the United States act on its threat to take over Greenland. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot on Wednesday said that he believed the United States was committed to NATO, but he suggested European leaders were prepared to strike back against potential US intimidation. Denmark has warned any move to take Greenland by force would mean everything would stop, including NATO and 80 years of close transatlantic security links.
Greenland has never been for sale and never will be for sale. So nothing has changed from the Greenlandic side. And of course we can see that US is trying to say that they won't rule out to annex our country, and they're also interested in getting our country in other ways, but it's not interesting for us.
Greenland's value lies in its location within the Arctic Circle and its vast reserves of rare earth minerals. The melting ice in the Arctic Circle is opening new shipping routes for global trade, while the island's abundance of mineral resources are critical for modern technology and is drawing international attention. This has placed Greenland at the center of strategic rivalry among major powers. President Trump has reiterated his intention of taking over Greenland for national security reasons. The US military maintains a permanent presence at an air base in northwest Greenland under a 1951 agreement granting freedom to build bases with Danish and Greenlandic notification. The shortest route from Europe to North America runs via Greenland, making it important for the US ballistic missile early warning system. Greenland sits at geopolitical crossroads amid Arctic militarization by NATO, Russia and China. The US wants to expand its military footprint. Greenland's leadership maintains that the island's future will be decided by its people. However, Trump's repeated remarks have reignited concerns over sovereignty and the broader framework of international law. Bureau Report, DD India.
Meanwhile, a day after the White House said that it was not ruling out military intervention to acquire Greenland, President Trump wrote on social media platform Truth Social that he doubted allies would be there for us if we really needed them. He added that we will always be there for NATO even if they won't be there for us. In his post, President Trump repeated his frequent assertion that many members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization had failed to meet military spending commitments until he intervened, but also emphasized that the NATO member countries are all my friends. He highlighted that Russia and China have zero fear of NATO without the US as part of the alliance. And joining us is Ambassador J.S. Mukul to walk us through the implications of the Greenland developments. He is a former Indian envoy to Oman and the Netherlands. Ambassador Mukul, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, President Trump seems to suggest that annexing Greenland is a national security priority. Do you think it's a bogey or a genuine demand?
Well, good evening and thank you for having me.
Welcome.
I think it's the most bizarre thing that one can ever imagine. A country wanting to swallow up another sovereign country. In this case, an ally, ally in the NATO. So
Right.
I think the most bizarre situation. Obviously, in all such matters, it is a combination of issues. Yes, there may be strategic reasons that the United States thinks that Greenland is important. They have already stated clearly that it is a foreign policy goal and a national security priority for them because of the waterways, etc., and the proximity and the geostrategic location. But also, one should not forget that particularly coming as this development does soon after the last weekend's developments in Venezuela, the oil-related aspects there, there is also Greenland is very rich in mineral resources of all kinds, of natural resources, rare earths, etc. So what is exactly the motivation? It's difficult to say, but obviously it's a combination of all these. But I would only again like to emphasize the fact that while we are used to American exceptionalism over the years and decades, but I think this goes beyond exceptionalism. This is pure expansionism. That's all I can think about. And if it is linked beyond security to the raw materials and the minerals, then it's also a form of imperialism.
Absolutely. Now, Trump also says that Greenland is, quote, covered with Russian and Chinese ships. He also says that Denmark is not able to properly secure the territory. Is it true? Do you buy his argument?
You see, the United States is the one which has a base there already. And as per the agreement and among NATO allies, I mean, the United States could set up any number of bases if it was really security considerations that are bothering them. I don't think Denmark is going to object to more bases or more, of the NATO allies, either Denmark or Greenland. So, I mean, this thing doesn't, in my view, doesn't really, cut much ice because the security is there. And not only that, I mean, the way he said it, I mean, it was quite insulting and demeaning, saying that the Danish have added one more dog sled in terms of the security. I mean, this is not the way, this is not diplomacy at all. This is just antithesis of anything diplomatic. But anyway, I think we have already moved beyond diplomatic niceties in the case of the United States. So I think I don't particularly buy that argument because if there is a genuine concern, the United States and its allies, NATO allies, can all combine, join together and take countermeasures, including enhanced location of equipment, forces, bases, etc.
Indeed, and since you refer to NATO ambassador, Denmark says that the US move on Greenland will destroy NATO. So I'm wondering, is Trump willing to risk collapse of NATO for the sake of Greenland?
You see, one has to see this in context and perspective. Trump has never been very fond of NATO, if I recall his earlier statements. In fact, NATO is a greater requirement for the Europeans. In fact, they are desperate that the United States should remain and the NATO should remain in Europe. So it is in that sense difficult to understand. While this could of course be a Danish perspective because Denmark and Greenland are the directly affected parties. But I don't think in the joint statement which was issued by other major European powers, they questioned the future of NATO. So I think that is more, in the nature of rhetoric, saying that NATO, but certainly it will be a big setback in terms of the NATO provisions if one NATO power gobbles up another ally.
Conversely, Ambassador, European leaders have made the right noises, as it were, in support of Denmark, but will they risk alienating a NATO ally in the US for the sake of Greenland?
That remains to be seen. I would think they would, my personal guess would be that there would be criticism if the US went ahead with the occupation or annexation of Greenland. There would be strong condemnation, criticism, but I would think at the end of the day they would stop short of destroying NATO.
Now, some say that the US captured Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro in violation of international law. Similarly, will a US annexation of Greenland violate international law?
No, absolutely. I mean, but I think by now we should understand that US is the last sort of country which is bothered about international law or the UN Charter and things like that. So I think, yes, while the answer to your question is obviously a strong affirmative yes, but I don't think the US in its present, in the present state is least concerned about international law, violation of international law, violation of UN Charter, in this case, even violation of NATO provisions.
Indeed. Now, if we pause here for a moment, Ambassador, and take a step back and look at the world map as a whole, what precedent do you think will Trump's move on Venezuela and possibly Greenland set? Will it have any implications, for instance, for Taiwan?
Well, it's difficult to say what implications it will have directly for Taiwan, but certainly it's a big setback in the rules-based international order, because if the number one superpower of today is completely abandoning international law and the UN Charter, yes, it could encourage others to do likewise. Now, what will each of the other countries, how will they sort of, understand, interpret this and take action? That, of course, is difficult to speculate.
And finally, Ambassador, does India have a skin in the game? Possibly not, but does New Delhi have a view on the future of Greenland, for instance, and what would that be?
Well, again, I don't want to be
Sure.
speculating, but I think we will certainly be very concerned because, again, India follows the international law, follows the UN Charter, and we have been strong adherents to that. So obviously, that would not be something that we would like. But what will be our response and reaction will remain to be seen.
All right, Ambassador Mukul, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and perspectives with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you so much for your time.